Alright, so in this video I want to cover the endgame Molten Strike Valdo Farmer on the Armor Stacker. The setup I've been playing for the past week in the Valdos, making quite a lot of currency so far doing this, and this league pretty insane because we can use the Doriani's prototype mercs and get insane amounts of damage. Armor Stacker is pretty good at basically any content. I think you can customize it to pretty much do anything you want in the game. The setup we're going to go over today is mainly focused on farming these Valdo's tier 17 maps. And I guess let's go run one of these Valdos. So right now I'm having quite a lot of fun doing these Forbidden Jewel Valdos. They are pretty fun, kind of like a gamble, you could say, gamble Valdo. Anyways, so let's go run one of these. This one has 3 or 4 ghosted feared and 100% Deli. So that's pretty much the map. And I guess we can cover which map mods I've done as well at some point in the video. But just to put things in perspective, this is actually quite hard for Armor Stacker, this map. Mainly is the ghosted feared mod is quite hard for Armor Stacker. Now that we don't really have Transcendence, you can't really tank all of their abilities. This character can tank a ghosted normal Flame Blast without any kind of defensive things up, like Molten Shell or that kind of stuff. But there is a lot of other things that will kill you, like a double Flame Blast, which comes out incredibly quickly in these maps. Anyways, let's stop stalling and jump into the map. Hopefully we don't die. Alright, so I decided to re-record the showcase because at the time when I recorded it, the Merc only had minus 60 lightning res. Like the Calandra's touch ring was kind of bugging out and it didn't actually work on his stats. So I figured we'd do another one, and if you're wondering what it looked like with only minus 60 damage, it's the video that was playing when I was kind of talking about the overview of the build. So let's go with the full minus 200 DPS, or minus 200, what is going on here? Lightning res. And here we have the feared already. Okay, that's good. I do want to get, let's see, we have a Vol Haste, we'll almost have one. So you guys can see the full burst. Alright, so let's go and one-shot them. Here we go. Alright, hopefully we don't die. I think we've killed them. Yeah, we got Azeri. We got quite a few of them. There is a few guys left, I think. Is there? Oh, they're all dead. It'd be funny if that was a Mage Blood. Alright, and that is Warlock Gloves. Wow. Alright, so yeah, that is the Feared in a ghosted map. You can see that it's pretty easy. If you know, when they're in their delirium animation, pretty much, you just use that time to actually go and kill them, because when they're doing their delirium animation, they're not doing any kind of dangerous abilities or anything like that. All right, let's see. Do we get anything good? Actually, come to think about it, the damage difference didn't really seem that much with the minus 200 versus the minus 60. I guess at this point, it's just the actual damage we're doing is not as important as the amount of time it takes for the Molten Strike balls to kind of come out and then return, because that's how we're doing a lot of our damage. So at some point it just becomes getting more damage is you don't really notice it as much because of just the way Molten Strike works as a skill, right? There's a little bit of ramp. Okay, let's check it out. We got Jagged Technique. Oh, this is definitely not going to be good. I mean, who's playing Bleed in 2025, right? A lot of people ask what is better, the Regalia or the Necrotic Armor. And this league, you should not be using Necrotic Armor. It's like there's no reason to use a Necrotic Armor unless you want to use it to get suppression. If you want to run a suppressed setup, because this league, you use the Necrotic Armor because it gives you flat evasion, which gives you a lot of damage. It's quite a lot of damage. It's like 20 to 30% more DPS if you use a Necrotic Armor. However, this league, when we're already doing billions of DPS, my character is with when I push my Vol Haste and Vol Smite, we're doing about 4.5 billion DPS. And with full like BIS gear, you're doing about 16 billion DPS. So 20 to 30% more on that is like very, very insignificant compared to having a Twilight Regalia, which will give you quite a lot more energy shield and make you more tanky. Right, so this league, use a Twilight Regalia, just don't bother with the necrotic armors. So that's the body armor. And then the helmet, this one I think is made by Misha, I believe. Kind of insane because if you notice, there is no crafted mods on it. The guy's crazy, right? Insane crafter. I don't know how he did it or how many Hinocore's locks it took, but here it is. No crafted mods, 500 energy shield, a gem helmet. Pretty insane. This helmet is just completely nuts. Anyways, so you want one of these, and if you don't have currency to use one of these or buy one of these, you can make one that's pretty much the same but without the implicits. And so I actually do have a guide on how to make them, and I was using one when I first went into Valdo's. I didn't have the mirrored helmet, I just had a crafted one with the, the suffix were pretty much the same, except the implicits were just the Eldritch implicits for like mana reservation, that kind of stuff. So although the most impactful upgrades you can buy is like the helmet, pretty much. This is like a huge DPS increase. I guess the body armor pretty important as well, but if you have a self-crafted body armor that's, like decent enough stats, then I would just say get a helmet instead of getting a mirrored body armor, because the helmet is pretty much the most impactful item you can buy on this build at the moment. Okay, so the gloves, I'm not really sure what kind of gloves I want to make. I do have a pair of gloves that's ready to be crafted. Just haven't really decided on what affixes I want, but for now you can use one of these kind of gloves. It's pretty simple. They're just energy shield base with high energy shield. That's pretty much all you really want. And you need it for the non-vol skill strike skills target 2 additional enemies. That's pretty much all you need from these gloves. And then I guess you can get some useful stats like intelligence, attack speed, fire resistance, obviously. And basically just try to get as much energy shield as possible. The amulet, so we have a misted +8 amulet. This one is also, actually, well, I said the helmet is the most impactful item for the build, but actually it's the amulet. This amulet going from a +4 to a +8 is like 50 to 60% more damage, which is completely insane. The helmet is, I think the helmet's like 15 to 20-ish, depending on what other kind of items you have. Maybe 20 to 25 more DPS. But the amulet is just insane. It literally just like doubles your damage when you get a +8. Getting one of these, pretty important. There's some other good amulets to use. So either you use just a +2/+2, so a +4, and you have crafted on strength and intelligence, which is pretty nice because it can be a little bit of a struggle to get strength early on. So that's what I was actually doing before. Either use one of those or use Ashes or the Eternal Struggle. So Eternal Struggle is quite expensive now. So if you don't have one, then just don't buy Eternal Struggle. A lot of people ask if there a good substitute amulet. And yeah, you pretty much just use Ashes, because Ashes is actually more damage than a +4. And also, I think it's also the same damage or a bit more than Eternal Struggle. The Eternal Struggle is nice because obviously our effect has global defense, so you get more energy shield, and it has a bunch of stats, which makes gearing a lot easier early on. We do need a Nimbus. Thankfully, they're very cheap this league. And then obviously we have the Mage Blood and the Ralakesh. So if we talk about endurance charges, so endurance charges is the main layer, or one of the main layers of defense that we're going to be scaling on Scion. And previously in other leagues, we used the Unleash Potential Forbidden Jewels. That gives your endurance charges 200% increased duration, so they last like 50 seconds. So what we do is we'd weapon swap to Red Blade Banner, and then that makes your War Cries have infinite power. We use Enduring Cry to generate endurance charges, and we'd have endurance charges for 50 seconds. And you also do get an endurance charge on kill, so pretty much you just do it once at the beginning of a map, or Valdo map or whatever, and then you pretty much have permanent endurance charges. So that setup was very good, and I actually am not using it anymore because of there's a ghost mod that steals endurance charges or removes them or whatever. The Unleashed Potential setup is very good because you can use energy shield boots like Warlock boots. In any content where there isn't like ghosts and that kind of stuff, like the ghosted feared Valdos, I would say Unleashed Potential pretty good still. But for Valdos, you know, you just need consistent endurance charges, right? You just can't, if there's like a ghost there and it just takes your endurance charges off, you're pretty much just gonna die. So it's better just have more consistency, I think. And I definitely did like this setup quite a bit more, not having to worry about the war cries and endurance charges and all that kind of stuff. It also allows me to use the Deadeye jewels, which are pretty insane for Molten Strike. We get Tailwind, we get Mark Effect, we get +1 Proj, which is massive DPS increase. Okay, so that's that. I'll quickly cover the flask real quick. I'm using the Oak Branch Tincture. I'm still using the pen one. You can use attack speed or pen. I think they're both about the same amount of DPS. But you do want to make sure you try to get the rage on hit to be as high as possible. So with a 25 quality and 35% increased effect, you'll get 5 rage on hit. Normally it's only 3, right? So this means I'll get to max rage incredibly quickly, right? So it's you can only gain it 0.5 seconds, I think. So this is 10 rage per second. So in 3 seconds, I'm at max rage. And that's kind of what you need in Valdos, where a lot of times you'll have to disengage and then you're just going to lose all your rage, right? So now I can just push my flask again, instantly be back at full rage whenever I need it. So that's why I like the Oak Branch Tincture. Aside from that, the flasks are all kind of just kind of normal armor stacker flasks. So normally you have like a Stibnite here. In a lot of Valdo maps, there is reduced movement speed, which makes you move really slow. So now I'm actually just using Quicksilver. This is about 1 billion DPS lost or so, give or take, by doing this. But since we have so much damage now, it doesn't really matter that much. And that's kind of like the theme, I think, for this league is you're going to get so much damage that you can kind of cut DPS elsewhere and build into more quality of life, movement speed, or defenses like with the Regalia, that kind of stuff, and still have a very, very strong character, which is pretty insane. So aside from the Nimbus, you are going to want another ring. I'll quickly go into POB so you can see the kind of the, I guess, the ideal ring for the build. For Scion Armor Stacker, the most important implicit on your ring is going to be the +1 endurance charge. You might think, oh, what about the Grace and Determination? Those are great, right? But yeah, they're really good, right? You give you a lot of damage, but like we said, this league, you get so much damage from the Merc that, and even before, I would say, you know, even if the Mercs weren't there, I would say you definitely need the endurance charge for defense, right? So that should be if the ring doesn't have +1 endurance charge, or if you're doing, say, like Champion with Masterful Form, then +1 Frenzy. If it doesn't have that mod, just don't bother with it, because you need the endurance charge. Okay, so and then you can get like Grace, Determination, and then, you know, the ring explicits are kind of whatever, right? They'll depend on the ring, but they're not too important, right? As long as you have intelligence, resistance, either all attributes or all resistance, it doesn't really matter. Another good ring for something like a more regen focused build, which we'll go over in a little bit, is something like this. So this one has the endurance charge, it has Grace, but it doesn't really matter if it's Grace or Determination because it's like a 1% TPS difference. And then you have a regenerate 3% of life per endurance charge. This one's going to be, you know, more impactful the more endurance charges you get, and it'll add up. It's like another 500 or so ES regen. And if you wear 2 of them, then you get quite a bit more. So especially on a Smite build where you don't need a Nimbus, this is going to be really, really nice because you get quite a lot of ES regen. Okay, so that's the 2 rings things, but you know, for Valdo Farmer, you shouldn't really be too concerned about the ring, because 90% of the time I'm playing like this, right? I'm doing the less damage per item maps. Most of the maps I'm running have that mod, and you can't use a ring, so not super impactful. All right, so let's take a look at the mercenary. He's got some pretty good stats, pretty beefy. You can see he's like 80,000 armor, 4k life, 4,500 life, life regen 2,500, minus 200 lightning res, almost 2k ES. This guy, he's got like 90 max fire res. He's pretty beefy, right? So he is using the Formless Flame. This is giving him quite a lot of armor, pretty much. The main reason we want armor is because lightning damage, hit damage, especially from things like Azuri and that kind of stuff, those feared bosses can do a lot of damage to him. So the more armor we have, the less lightning damage he'll be taking, pretty much, for like from big hits, I guess, right? He also does have quite a lot of evasion because we're giving him a very juiced up Grace aura. Basically just Formless Flame, and you can get some nice implicit that kind of helps your Merc out, like the life regen is quite nice. And I'm also using a Dawnbreaker to kind of mitigate some of the lightning damage he takes. So he's taking it as fire, and since he does have 90 fire res, this kind of does help him out quite a bit with, you know, lightning and cold damage. As for the prototype, he's using just a Dorian's prototype with like reduced lightning damage taken. And then for the rings, these were actually really surprisingly really easy to make. You just buy a Hellenical ring, get lightning resistance, T1 lightning res, and then craft on fire and cold res, and then just, you know, use the mist and mirror it, and it's pretty much guaranteed to get in a couple of tries. And you can always vendor recipe. I think it's like what, 5-to-1 for you get another one, then you can split it. It should be pretty easy to make one of these, and then you just mirror it with the Calandra's Touch, and this will kind of give him a lot of fire and cold res and basically cap out your lightning res. Okay, and then I made a new pair of gloves with Culling Strike. Basically, that's pretty much it. For the suffixes, you just want Culling Strike, Fire Resistance, and Life Regen per second, or Life Regeneration Rate would actually be better, but I didn't get it. And this Culling Strike mod is really rare to hit, so I decided, alright, we'll just keep it as it is. And then you just want some armor and max life on the prefix. So that's the gloves. If you're playing on champion, you can also roll Intimidate, I think, with one of these influence gloves. So it's kind of cool. I did also give it a white socket, so it looks cool. And then for the belt, using Immortal Flesh, I've catalyzed mine for resistances so that he actually gets -30, because remember, we are giving him Purity of Elements, so he is going to be getting quite a lot of resistances and lightning res, so we have to reduce it quite a lot more than most other builds would. That's why we're using the Immortal Flesh. And then, let's see, for the boots, these ones are just giving him some life regeneration rate, max fire res, chaos res, life, you know, just kind of basic stuff, right? Some resistances, max res. And that is the Merc. So for hard content, like Ghost Feared, we can talk about the Merc. He is immortal almost, pretty much. There's only a few things that will kill him. Okay, so let's see if we can kind of find a good example. This is in a 10% less damage per item, and area becomes increasingly lethal. I don't know if this actually applies to the mercenary, but Azuri will do the ability that actually is a little bit dangerous for him. So you can see he's actually just tanking everything. He's not even taking damage from like Shaper Beam, but this thing, it's kind of hard to see, but these yellow runes, these are lightning damage, I believe, and if he stands inside of these and gets hit by too many in a row without you know, getting out, healing, or if he has leeching or whatever, he will die to that, pretty much. Ghosted or not ghosted, it doesn't really matter. So you can see I pulled him away from them. But one thing you can do to actually make him immortal to that as well is use a Eyes of the Great Wolf with lightning damage from hits taken as fire damage. So with this setup, you lose your lucky damage from the Merc, but this will basically make him so pretty much immortal again. I mean, obviously, if he takes too much damage, mine doesn't have super good recoup or recovery, so with more recovery might be better, but he has actually died with this setup as well. I'm not really sure what killed him at the time. I think at the time he didn't even have enough cold and lightning resistance on his own, and he ran out of my Purity of Elements aura, and well, like, I was trying to run away from the Feared, I think, and he just kind of stayed in there and lost my auras, and then just kind of got one shot. Well, not one shot, but he died. So I would say, if as long as he's around you, with you, he's gonna be fine. Using this setup, pretty much he's only died that one time, so I would say pretty much immortal using this kind of setup. For anything aside from a Ghosted Feared, or Ghosted Feared with like less damage taken and all that kind of stuff, 100% Deli Feared, I don't really care because they die in like 2 seconds. But for the most part, you can use the the perk, the toe amulet. And if you really want to be safe, then get one of these Eyes of the Great Wolf amulets with the lightning damage taken as fire. Okay, so that is the Merc setup. There's a couple setups in the compendium, like one of them has a rare shield, because like if you're using the Eyes of the Great Wolf, you don't really need Dawnbreaker. So you can just go and craft a rare shield with like a lot of life and armor and that kind of stuff. But anyways, so that's my Merc setup that I've been running. Okay, so let's talk about the Rungrafts. So I'm using the Rungraft of the Fortress. This overall gives you more energy shield than having the extra attributes. So I think it's good. It also does give you a little bit of damage. And then I'm also using the Rungraft of the Sinistral. This one is like 5% more DPS. So I don't know. You don't really need this, but I'm just trying it out. I think it's pretty cool. I did have one extra point anyways. And that's pretty much it. And as for the build right now for our recovery, I do have a decent amount of energy shield regen, like 1,400. And I can get up to like 2,500 if I did, or, invest a little bit more into regen. And I did try a regen setup that was able to get over 4,000 ES regen. So you can still build sort of the old regen setup, sort of. You're not going to be able to get like 8,000, 10,000 ES regen. But 4,000 ES regen with 6, 7, 8 endurance charges is going to be pretty comfy. Anyways, so this setup, I don't really want to invest too much in regen on this setup because I think overall Instant Leech with Ghost Reaver is a lot better, especially with Molten Strike. When you get tons of like hits, pretty much you're pretty much always going to be leeching up to max, as well as giving me tons of mana leech. If you go look in PLB real quick, you can see my mana leech is like 800 mana leech rate. So that means my tincture uptime is pretty insane. I can leave that thing on for like 20 seconds, and it's pretty insane. I can go all the way up to like 50-60 mana burn stacks. So that's kind of pretty nice, as well as you can see my ES leech rate is like 8,000 pretty much. So pretty insane, I would say. Kind of like the instant leech. Overall, I think regen setups are kind of nice, but then there's a lot of things that kind of mess you over with the regen, especially with like there's ghost mods that just like disable regen. There's delirious mods that reduce your regeneration rate. There's map mods, right? There's so many things that kind of mess around with regen. And I remember in the Legacy of Phrygia League, I tried a setup that could get up to 50,000 ES regen. All right, in the rogue maps, and it didn't feel as good as my other build with 0 ES regen and just using Aegis Aurora. So I think if you want to have like, but I mean, obviously having a bit of regen is nice for like some degens. You don't have to constantly worry about bleeding out and that kind of stuff. So I think kind of a hybrid setup where you have a little bit of regen, so maybe like 2,000 to 3,000 ES regen. That'll pretty much cover most degens in the game. Then you have Leech or Aegis Aurora. So I think that kind of setup is probably going to be a lot, a little bit more optimal. Okay, so for the tattoos, we have stun tattoos. Just need 10 of them. If you have extra strength, then you get fire resistance or armor, and then on your int tattoos you put just energy shield. If you want to get more ES regen, you can drop points. Like you could actually just drop this whole area here and then put get the fire overcap regen, fire mastery regen. That'll work. And so yeah, I don't think you should drop the instant leech unless you're playing Aegis Aurora. If you're playing Aegis, then you can drop these like 1, 2, 3. Just keep the 1 point here. Anyways, I'll go over some POBs with Aegis. We talk about the cluster jewels. Mine are okay-ish. The build needs a lot of strength because we're not really pathing to a lot of strength nodes. So I would suggest getting, I think mainly you want to focus on getting intelligence, a lot of intelligence, so that you get a lot more energy shield. And obviously fire resistance. So fire resistance int or fire resistance all attributes, or you might need a few strength ones, right? And you are going to need some all elemental resistances because, yeah, you do need to get your resistances. Okay, so that is the cluster setup over here. You can go check these out in the POB. I do have a guide on how to make these as well. So you can go check that out if you're interested. Okay, so as for the Watchers, mine's pretty basic, and all you really need is the ES on hit mod, I think, and then if you can get the Lightning Pen, or that's pretty much it, I think, yeah. And then for the Forbidden Jewels, using Deadeye over here, and that is pretty much it. So let's cover a couple of different setups I use for the Valdos. So in the 90% less damage maps, I just take off my ring. So that means that I need to make sure that my ring isn't going to brick my attributes as well as my resistances. So that's something to keep in mind. And then in most Valdos, except for this one, Iron Core, which is a pretty insane map, I'm running a Quicksilver instead of my Stibnite Flask. So this is the actual set. This is what I'm actually playing with most of the time. All right, and let's cover a couple of other setups. So this is the POB of my character, pretty much of when I first entered the Valdos. Don't really need that much ES. This one is able to do like the less damage per item feared, 100% Deli feared, and a lot of those just like 2 defensive mod feared kind of maps, and I was running a lot of those and started making currency for the rest of my gear. You see this setup is still running Soul Ascension, and you do want to, the first item you want to kind of upgrade in this setup is going to be the gloves to get the rare gloves, because it's going to give you a lot more survivability. And Soul Ascension, I found that since we have so much damage, it's never able to ramp. So the only reason I kind of had it here is because I was using these previously in my previous setup, and I just didn't want to craft a pair of gloves, right? Because I wanted to buy other things. So you don't even really need to use these, and I would probably suggest you don't use these. If you are making this whole thing from scratch, you'd probably just use a rare pair of gloves. Maybe I'll update that to kind of change it, reflect those changes. But anyways, aside from that is just Ralakesh with +1 endurance. We got the Nimbus, we got our same ring, the Mage Blood. So pretty much all you really need is a armor. It doesn't really need to be a mirrored armor. It could be something you've crafted yourself. A crafted helmet similar to this. And honestly, you can get away with quite a lot less stats. Like I've done the 90% less damage per item feared maps with 300 million DPS. With full burst config, of course, right? So that's even only going to be like 150 million without your Vol skills. So I would say that you could even go in with quite a lot worse gear, right? And if you take a look at the gear, it's nothing really that special, right? We're not using any voices, right? Only just these large clusters. Introspections, I think only one of them or 2 of them was like 35% increased effect, and that's not even really needed as well. You can get more reservation. I believe there is more reservation over here if you really need it. So they're not even you don't even need 35% increased effect jewels. All you really need is the Mage Blood, the Ralakesh. You don't really need the +1 corruption either. A decent body armor with the Fire Overcap mod, and a Nimbus, and that's all you really need. Those are like the core items for this setup. So very, very low entry cost, I would say. Okay, and this is a 3 passive voices setup, what it would look like. I actually didn't play this setup because I think the 3 passives are kind of a waste of currency, and I just went straight for the 1 passives. Because the thing is, if you played this setup with the large clusters from this setup, the DPS difference is very, very, very low. I mean, very, very small DPS difference, right? So going from 8 passive to 3 passives is it's a very, very low impact, right? You don't really save that many points, and you gain a little bit more damage. So it's not, I mean, there's people who just like these kind of 3 passive voices setups and want to run them. They don't want to run 8 passive clusters. And also, if I would say that if you want to run your haste aura, which we aren't doing, by the way, because the Merc has a haste aura. If you want to run the haste aura, then you probably do want to run these voices setups, because you probably won't be able to do that on a passive large cluster setup. Okay, so this is the 3 passive voices setup. DPS going up quite a bit. The main difference here is that we have the crafted glove, we have the mirrored helmet, we have a focused amulet. This is not misted yet, so it's just a +4. Very reasonable setup, I would say. The ring is the same. The only difference is we've got voices, we got the mirrored helmet, and I'd say in order of upgrades, first of all, you get your basic setup running, get a good body armor. Either this should be like the first thing you mirror, or you craft your own, and you get the helmet. After this, you want to get a good pair of gloves, decent pair, like, you know, 250, 300 plus ES. I would say get one of these, and then after that, you get the helmet, right? So, or yeah, get the helmet and the gloves. These two items are like top priority, and then you work on your amulet, I would say, and then the voices. Okay, so that is kind of that, and then this is the one passive voices setup. So this is kind of like my POB. My POB is only at like 4.5 billion DPS burst. This one 6.5, because it's got a little bit better items. You can see this one has a corrupted mage blood, corrupted nimbus. Some of the items are actually like a little bit better, like the gloves are made with better what do you call it, explicit modifiers. The Relikish has the best corruption outcome, and I think that's pretty much it. Oh yeah, we also are using one of the mirror rings, and that's pretty much it, guys. Oh, the clusters are also probably, you know, tier 1. So that is the sort of setup for one passive voices. What it looked like, pretty insane. There's also a regen setup I want to go over real quick, and a tank setup that I kind of made at like 3 a.m. in the morning. So this is what the setup would look like if you want to go focus on a bit more ES regen. So basically you just skip this area here, you pick up this, and you change a couple of things, and we can get quite a lot of regen. Now if we turn off the frost shield, we can kind of see about 4,300 ES regen. We lose a bit of damage. This is going down from 6.5 billion to 4.3 billion. Not going to be a big difference. The main thing is, so we're going to change our forbidden jewels to Inquisitor. This is going to give us a consecrated ground, which is quite a lot of ES regen. Pretty big amount of ES regen. And then we are going to also be going for the fire regen mastery. You can see this is about 900 ES regen for us. And then also on your Watcher's Eye, you do want to focus more on regen, I would say, so you get some ES regen, that kind of stuff. That's pretty much it. Oh, and for the Energy Shield Mastery, we can then pick up the 2% ES regen. On our body armor, you can do the, you know, ES regen mod, although this one's not so impactful. It's only like 150 ES regen, I think. You can also just do the attribute one here too. This one is not going to be such a big difference, I think. You can also, if you really want to, you could go craft on, you can unveil this mod and then get fire resistance and flat regen, right? So you could potentially get up to 5,000 ES regen if you just put life regen on all of your items, like on your gloves and on your regalia and on your, I don't think you'll get put it on here, but right, you get what I'm saying, right? So you can get quite a lot of ES regen still, even after the nerfs to Guardian. And so just want to say this setup would probably be better if you just don't like having to rely only on leech. We'll still get quite a good amount of leech. You can see 5,000 ES leech rate, which is pretty insane. So overall total combined for about 9,000 ES recovery per second. Pretty good, I'd say. This is a sort of tank setup I was thinking of doing, but I'm not really sure. This is using pretty insane in-game min-maxed gear, but you can see the max that we can get on this pretty insane. It's like 600k, and this can go quite a bit higher if we, for fire at least, if we fit in Arctic armor, which you can kind of fit in if you wanted to. You can go up to 800k. So I'll have this POB linked in the compendium, but I just want to say that I don't know. I think it's good. Like, you're using like a shield and this kind of stuff. This requires quite a lot of gear, and if you don't have a lot of damage, then I don't know. This setup might not really even be worth making. But yeah, pretty cool. You can basically just go for stacking more intelligence, trying to get more energy shield. You see this one almost has 20k ES. So this one would be pretty tanky, I would say, if you do manage to actually find all the items and get all the items for this build. Alright, and this is sort of what the build would look like with best in slot items on the DPS setup. You can see we're close to 14 billion DPS, And this can go quite a bit higher. Like, I've tried to make this sort of a playable character, but you could actually try to get more damage, even though I don't know why you would need that much more damage. This can go up to about 18 billion with some other setups. So, kind of crazy. Definitely don't need this much damage. Like, if you find a way to get frenzies into the build, you see you're already at like 16 billion, and it gets pretty crazy. Also, you know, I probably wouldn't, at this point, I would probably wouldn't even bother with 2 swords. I'd just go with the shield for more defense. Or anyways, so that's kind of like the setup. I'll have this linked in the compendium as well at some point. It's not really done yet, so I haven't really posted it yet, but this is sort of the numbers you can get with completely min-max gear, which is kind of absurd. Alright guys, video's getting kind of long, so we're going to cut it over here. There's probably a lot more I want to talk about and some stuff I forgot, so if you have any other questions, put it in the description, or I mean in the comments, and I'll try to get back to you guys. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.